Valkyrie Profile was originally released in 1999 and turned the JRPG genre on its head by introducing unique mechanics in turn-based combat and gameplay. And now, as of December 22nd, 2022, both veterans of the series and new players alike get a chance to play this masterpiece. This game is amazing, but I'll admit, it has high barriers of entry. The goal of this video is to make the game more accessible so that everyone gets a chance to experience this title without the deep learning curve. We'll cover combat, how to get all the endings, and most of the basics you'll need to start playing. So consider this as sort of a digital instructions manual video with some tips. This will be a spoiler-free video so you can enjoy the story. The only spoilerish elements will be the names of characters and areas. I'll make another spoiler video very soon talking about the story, so please look forward to that one. For your convenience, I've divided the video into chapters located in the description box below, so feel free to jump around to whatever fits your needs. But let's not waste any more time and get started. From the get-go, the game asks you to choose from easy, normal, and hard mode, and each of them have important differences. I'm going to assume that the developers wanted the player to experience multiple playthroughs to learn the mechanics, and even though that can be fun, this video should help you either way. The following are the major differences between the difficulty settings. You will receive more experience points in easy mode, a moderate amount in normal mode, and a few experience points in hard mode. You will receive few items in easy mode, a moderate amount in normal mode, and many in hard mode. This game is very item focused, but we'll discuss that later in the video. You will explore a few dungeons in easy mode, a moderate amount in normal mode, and many in hard mode. Keep in mind that easy and normal mode have exclusive dungeons and hard has exclusive dungeons with better items. There are a total of 24 recruitable Einherjar. Easy mode will give you access to a few of them, normal gets you most of them, and hard mode lets you recruit everyone. In easy and normal modes, recruited Einherjar start with a fixed level, whereas in hard mode, all recruits start at level 1. Lastly, the game has 3 endings, ending C being the bad ending, ending B being the normal ending, and ending A is the true ending. Easy mode gives you access to endings B and C, while normal and hard mode give you access to all the endings. Now I want to give 3 side notes before we continue. First, the game is divided between 8 chapters and a prologue, and each chapter has a number of periods that are used to move game time forward. Don't worry, we'll cover this more in a minute, but I just wanted to make you aware that each difficulty mode affects the amount of periods you'll receive. Easy mode gives you, I believe, 18 periods, normal gives you 24, and hard mode gives you 28. Secondly, in my opinion, and many Valkyrie Profile veterans agree that calling it hard mode is a bit of a misinterpretation. In my personal view, hard mode is more open to player creativity. Enemy parameters do not change, their stats and health points remain the same, and since the game is heavily item focused, you get access to the best items in the game, and you get more time to train and explore. I think the only difficult part in hard mode is training recruits from level 1. Honestly, it's up to you, but I recommend starting our normal mode to get used to the game mechanics. And on a final note, ending A is super cryptic to get, which is why I decided to cover it in this video. It has a laundry list of things you need to do, and you're welcome to try to get it yourself, but if not, I got you, and we'll cover that closer to the end of the video. Remember when I said before that Valkyrie Profile takes the JRPG genre and turns on its head? Well, keep in mind that Lenneth is a goddess and Valkyrie Profile treats you like one. This game does not dick around. You don't get an airship or a chocobo or anything like that whatsoever. You fly around the world map from the start. You don't purchase items and gears from towns, you divine items from the gods. You don't fight rats at level 1, you fight gods, the undead, demons, and battles are full-blown anime spectacles. And that being said, unfortunately this approach also changes the way you would normally play JRPGs. To summarize, your mission as Lenneth is to help the god Odin and the Aesir prepare for the coming of Ragnarok. As a Valkyrie, You're tasked to find the souls of recently deceased warriors, train them, and send them to Asgard to fight the war against the Vanir. Valkyrie Profile starts you off with a prologue town and a dungeon. Once completed, the game kinda throws you out there into the world and just kinda wishes you good luck. As stated earlier, the game is divided into 8 chapters, and each chapter will give you a set number of periods depending on the difficulty. Once all the periods are used, you'll move on to what's called the Sacred Phase, and then the next chapter. So let's just break all this down. In each chapter, you will start on the world map with access to towns. To start, begin each chapter by pressing the start button. This initiates what's called Spirit Concentration. This is basically a dungeon and Einherjar locator system. It puts Lenneth in a meditation state, and the Einherjar available for that chapter will be located. Be sure to jot this down because you'll only see their location once and you're not going to be reminded again. Keep doing spirit concentrations to locate the recruits for the chapter and the dungeons for that chapter as well. You will know that you found every recruit and dungeon available when Lenneth finds nothing during a spirit concentration. So just keep doing it until nothing more is found. In each chapter, there are periods. Remember that each difficulty level has a certain amount of periods per chapter. So we'll use the hard mode 28 periods per chapter as the examples. Periods move time forward depending on certain actions you perform, which are the following. Every time you do spirit concentration, that uses 2 periods. So for example, if there are 2 Einherjar and 2 dungeons to be found, you will use 8 out of the 28 periods. Period points will not be used if Lenneth doesn't find anything during a spirit concentration. Visiting dungeons uses 2 periods, and visiting towns use 1 period. You can also spend periods to rest in the in-game menu. At first it may seem like you don't have a lot of time, but trust me, the game gives you more than enough time to recruit, clear dungeons, and train. After spirit concentration, go to the towns where the recruits are located. Their story will play out, and then they'll be recruited. They'll appear in the party section in the in-game menu. Once everyone is recruited, clear the available dungeons. By the time you do all of this, you should have periods left, so feel free to train or visit towns. Another thing you need to do during each chapter is that you have to transfer Einherjar to Asgard. You can send 1 or 2. In my opinion, sending 1 is enough, and you can send them anytime in the chapter. Every chapter will have different requirements of the Einherjar you send up, but we'll get to that later in the in-game menu section of the video. Quick FYI, the fairy at the end of the prologue dungeon is going to tell you the type of Einherjar to send up for chapter 1, but afterwards and from there on forward, it's going to be Freya that's going to tell you. After the chapter is completed, Lenneth will be summoned to Asgard, and the Sacred Phase will take place. The Sacred Phase is basically an intermission between chapters. Freya will show you the status of the war, you can check on the Einherjar you sent, and Freya will reward you with materialized points, which is basically the game's currency, and some items, weapons, and armor. Lastly, Freya will tell you what kind of Einherjar to send up in the upcoming chapter. Write this down or take a pic of your screen because this request will not be repeated. Moving forward into the next segment, we're going to cover the in-game menu, or camp menu as the game calls it. We'll discuss learning skills, spells, transferring Einherjar to Valhalla, leveling up your party members, and more. Let's start with skills. All skills and spells are learned from finding books in dungeons, or books that are rewarded to you in the Sacred Phase. There isn't really anything like a skill tree or anything like that. This is why exploring dungeons is so important in this game, because almost all the good skills and spells must be found. Once a skill is learned, it'll apply to all the active party members, and even inactive party members as well. Even future recruitable Einherjar will have the skill automatically available once recruited, so you don't have to read a skill book more than once. There are some skills that only apply to melee characters and some to mages, but most of the skills either way are shared. Spells, on the other hand, will not apply to all mages. Once you use a spell book on a mage, that specific character will learn the spell and you'll have to find the spell again, so try to save spells for the mage or mages you plan to keep in your active party. Now back to skills for a second. Once a skill is learned from a book, it doesn't mean everyone automatically has it equipped. Every time you level up, you gain a new level and what this game calls capacity points. which are basically called ability points in other games. I think you get about 70 to 90 capacity points per level up. Once you get enough capacity points, you can go into the skill menu and apply points to skills. Most skills go from level 1 to 8. The higher the level, the more capacity points needed to reach the next level. Skills are divided into 4 categories: reaction skills, support, attack, and status skills. Reaction skills are abilities that are automatically used in battle. The best part is that reaction skills don't use a turn in battle. They're basically a free action. For example, if Lenneth has the first aid skill equipped, there is a chance that she will heal some HP to fellow party members at the beginning of a turn. The higher the skill level, the higher the chance. Each character can equip 2 reaction skills at a time. Support skills affect attack behaviors in combat. For example, the combo counter skill will allow melee characters and archers to counter attack with a full combo if an enemy misses them. Characters can equip 1 support skill at a time. Attack skills are kinda like support skills, but more direct. They also affect attack behaviors. For instance, Darkness Arrow will have archers attack all targets, but decreases the chance of avoiding attacks by 50%. Again, 1 attack skill can be equipped per character. Lastly, status skills are basically passive abilities. They increase stats such as strength and intelligence. Character stats will increase during level up, but these add extra punches. No equipping needed. They will automatically be applied once learned and strengthened as they level up. Once the other skills reach level 1, they can start being equipped. Go to the Learn section on the top of the skill menu to equip skills. This is a good way to customize your party. In the skill menu, you will also see traits. This is mainly for transferring Einherjar, so we'll cover transfer in the in-game menu next. In each chapter, you can transfer 1 or 2 Einherjar to Asgard, but they have to be presentable for Odin. If you go to traits in the skill menu, you will see that every character has certain traits and a hero value. In every sacred phase, Freya will tell you the Einherjar hero value needed for that chapter, and sometimes she'll ask for more like certain traits or skills. So let's say for example that Freya wants a recruit that has a hero value of 40 with certain traits like brave or nimble. You will then use capacity points to level up traits. Keep in mind you can also level up other traits to bring up hero value. Brave and nimble mainly applies if she's asking for that specifically, but you can upgrade anything during the chapter to bring up your hero value. Most Einherjar share similar traits, so look for the recruits that have nimble or brave and just level those up. Make sure you equip them with some low level gear too. For some odd reason, Asgard doesn't offer them weapons. Maybe a bunch of cheap asses, I don't know. Quick side note, let's say Freya needs a sorcerer with a particular trait that your current mage doesn't have. You can still send the mage, but you can also send up a melee Einherjar that has the missing trait. Other times, Freya will ask for like a specific status skill like defend or hit. Just be mindful of what she's asking from you, and again, make sure to jot it down. At the bottom of the camp menu, you'll see evaluation points. This is basically Odin scoring you on your performance. There are 2 factors that affect your eval points. The first is sending Einherjar to Asgard. The better the hero value and traits needed, the more points you will get during the sacred phase. I believe you can get up to 25 points per phase, but I could be wrong. I personally just usually max out some traits and hero values, and that kept my score high. Just remember that each skill needs to be at least level 4 minimum before transfer. The second factor that affects eval points is sending or keeping artifacts that you find in dungeons. This is funny because at the end of every dungeon, you will be rewarded with special artifacts, but there's a catch. They belong to Odin. Send up the artifact and you'll get 1 eval point per item. But you can say screw you and keep the artifacts for yourself. You will lose 5 eval points per item kept. And just so you know, you can actually keep all the artifacts and it won't affect your overall eval points much. And I suggest you do this because most of them are either good weapons or items. As long as you send up Einherjar with a high hero value and necessary traits and skills, you should be fine. Now earlier we mentioned that you can purchase items, so let's go over that real quick. You don't purchase items from shops. Of course not, you're a freaking goddess. On the world map or at a save point in a dungeon, you can use the materialized points that Freya gives you to purchase items in the divine item area in the in-game menu. You can buy recovery items and gear. One quick side note, Most weapons found in the overall world have a chance to break during battle. Weapons purchased from the divine item do not break. You can sell items as well in the convert MP option in the use item menu, but do not sell anything until around chapter 6, 7, or 8, because there are some things that's going to appear to be useless, but trust me, they're not useless. Also in the item menu, you can see an option called Transmutate. This is not crafting, but instead transforms items into other items. It basically depends on what you currently need. Also keep in mind that transmutating items will cost a small amount of materialized points. Later in the video, I'm gonna go over Transmutate more, so stick around for that. Now let's jump to the party section in the camp menu. You can swap out party members that you haven't sent to Valhalla yet. Pretty simple, right? Well, there's an option here called Experience Orb. Every time you solve a puzzle or perform a particular action in a dungeon, you'll receive experience points, but unlike battle, these experience points won't level you up. Instead, they'll accumulate in the Experience Orb option in the menu. And trust me, you're gonna get a lot of these. Basically what they're for is that instead of grinding or training, you can use these points to level up active and inactive members. The status menu is pretty basic. Here you can see all the member stats. This includes active and inactive members, except members sent to Asgard. Now this is usually where the first confusion starts and the level of barrier entry begins. Because for some damn reason, health points are not called health points or HP like in other JRPGs. They're called Divine Material Energy, or DME for short. I don't know why they did this, but screw that, we'll call it an HP. Also in the status menu, you can see each Anheria's hero value and a quick description about them. What's this on Lenneth's stat screen? Seal value? Yeah, we'll talk more about that later. But for now, let's briefly talk about the ability section. For melee characters and archers, you can see the name of their attacks here. The number of attacks they can use per turn is determined by the equipped weapon. Some weapons have a character perform 1, 2, or 3 attacks per turn. By clicking on normal attack, you can change the order of the attacks that are performed. Just pick what fits you best. The special attack will be shown on the right. This can't be changed. With mages, you'll instead see the spells you've taught them. By selecting a spell, you're basically choosing what their default attack will be in battle. More on that later. Mages also get special attacks, but it depends on the spell you currently have selected. But more importantly, it'll depend on their equipped staff or scepter. Be sure to check out the weapon description to see if a special attack is available on the scepter. Every character has their own set of attacks no matter the weapon. For example, Arngrim has Spinning Back Knuckle, High Wind, and Wrenching Swing. One weapon will probably have Wrenching Swing or High Wind, while another will have both or even all three. Everything else in the menu is pretty self-explanatory, so we'll just skip the rest. Okay, now for the fun part. Let's talk about combat. Even though Valkyrie Profile released in 1999, battles are not random encounters. All enemies are visible on the screen. To initiate battle, either touch the enemy or attack them to get the first turn. Alright, so let's get into a early game battle. Welcome to the combat screen. Now let's break all this down. On the upper right hand corner is the current turn number and number of attacks each party member can perform per turn, which is represented by the displayed number and set of green bars. Every character is represented by a face button. For example, in this battle, Lenneth is square, Arngrim is X, Llewellyn is triangle, and Jolanda is circle. Characters represented by square, X, and triangle are in the front row, while characters represented by circle are in the back row. Only archers and mages can attack from the back. Melee characters can't unless a certain skill is found. The front and back row concept applies to monsters too. Move the cursor on targets to see where they are. To attack the back row monsters, you'll have to defeat the ones in the front first. Only archers and mages can attack back row targets, even if they have front row targets defending them. When it's the party's turn and you want to attack, just press the corresponding face button with the character that you want to attack with. The left is self-explanatory, it's just the target's name and their health. On the bottom of the screen is the party area with their names and HP, which is represented by a green bar and this number. Under the health bar is charge time, or CT. This is where it gets a little complicated, but don't worry, we're going to go over it right now. I'll explain how CT works with mages first. Mages in Valkyrie Profile don't have MP or magic points like other JRPGs. All of their spells work on cooldown, and that is what CT is. It's a cooldown meter. Every time a mage uses a spell, it needs a certain amount of turns to cool down, and every spell has a different cooldown time. For every other character, cooldowns are for PWS attacks or ultimate attacks, as I like to simplify them as. We'll get into PWS in just a moment. But first, let's attack one of these guys. The main goal of combat is to chain attacks together to create a combo. But let's take a look at Yolanda for a second. She just used Firestorm in the combo. Firestorm only uses 1 CT, so she will need 1 turn to perform any actions again. Now let's attack this other monster and see what ultimate attacks are. When you attack an enemy, the party's combo meter starts to fill. The more successful your attacks, the more your combo meter fills up. Once it's filled, you can do a Purify Weird Soul attack or PWS attack. We'll call it PWS for the sake of the video. This is basically an ultimate attack that can do serious damage. Now let's go ahead and go to another battle and take a look at what happens when you chain PWSs together. If a PWS attack also manages to get the combo meter to 100, then you could chain together another PWS with another character. Keep in mind that you don't have to do this if the target is already defeated. Just feel free to let the PWS chain cancel. Now let's look down. See the CT meters? All PWS attacks use a certain number of CT. The number is different for every character. Valkyrie's PWS needs 3 turns to cool down. Argrim now needs 5 turns, etc. Mages can't perform any other action until their CT completely diminishes. Whereas I can still attack with frontline party members, but if the combo meter reaches 100, I can't use a PWS until the CT cools down. Now let's see what other actions I can take on my turn. If you press select, you can do the following. You can end your party's turn entirely, use an item, change equipped weapons, have mages use more spells, change party positions, or attempt to flee the battle. For now, let's take a look at other spells. During battle, mages can have 1 spell assigned to their face button to use against an enemy and use in a combo, but that doesn't mean they can't use other spells. If you have a fully refreshed CT, you can go into the select menu and use another spell. For instance, let's heal the party. Now Yolanda needs more cooldown time because heal uses more CT. Quick side note, you can later on find equipment that lowers CT more per turn. Now let's enter a more complex battle and check out a dungeon in chapter 5. As you can see here, now party members can use 2 attacks each, which means we have to manually press each button twice to perform a full combination. As you can see here, I just missed 1 attack with Argrim, so battles get a little bit more complicated later on. Just be mindful of how each character uses their combos, because there are some characters that have more complicated ways of performing them than others. For a quick example, there's a character named Elysium, where she needs to jump back after performing her first attack before attacking again. Now let's attack this one guy. See those small orbs that the enemy is dropping? When you attack someone that is on the ground, they will drop what these are called CT orbs. These will randomly distribute between party members and they reduce cooldown time. Magic gems, on the other hand, are these crystals. They drop when you attack an enemy that is in the air. They basically just add to your overall experience points earned. Alright, so one last side note for combat. Mages also get a PWS, but they depend on the magic you have assigned to the face button. I have Mystina here equipped with the Mystic Cross, so her PWS is going to be Celestial Star. Keep in mind that this mechanic applies to all mages. PWS is only available if the scepter you have equipped can use it. Many scepters don't give access to spells as PWS, so just look at the description of the weapon in the equip menu. It'll say something like allows wielder to perform great magic, something between those lines. Now with combat out of the way, let's jump to the Cave of Oblivion. The Cave of Oblivion is a randomized optional dungeon that appears in every chapter during Spirit Concentration. You don't have to do these, but most of them have great items for looting. Not gonna lie though, the RNG is kinda all over the place with these dungeons. Some will have items and some won't, some will have high level enemies, low level monsters, and sometimes no enemies whatsoever. If you do find one that has high level monsters that you can't kill, remember that you can avoid them or freeze them temporarily with Lenneth's crystal ability, and just go for the items instead. Just be sure to save the game before going in so you don't waste any time. Okay, now for some basic tips. Again, no spoilers, just names of characters and dungeons, so if you consider those spoilers then you may want to skip over this. Like I said before, this game is very item based. While grinding for experience points is always a plus, it's not always necessary. Explore areas to find all the good stuff and check out Transmutate. Most weapons found in Midgard are breakable. Weapons purchased from the Divine Item menu don't break, but do not sell breakable weapons. Many of them exploit enemy weaknesses, and some can even one-shot some bosses. If you finish a battle with a breakable weapon in one round, the weapon won't break, except for mage scepters. Those will break no matter what. Take your time during chapters, and plan out each of them so you can use your time properly. The Emerald Necklace accessory will give you 100 more capacity points per level up. This is an Odin artifact found in the Solday Catacombs in Chapter 2 on normal and hard mode only. You might get one or two more of these accessories later if I'm not mistaken. The Emerald Necklace is also useful when using the Experience Orb mechanic. If you're trying to level someone up, equip them with the Emerald Necklace and you'll get more CP when you level them up with Experience Orb. Later in the game, you can equip Fairy Rings and Fairy Earrings accessories to reduce cooldown. Perfect for mages. Found later in Divine Item, certain dungeons, or through Transmutate. Pick a team and stick with it. Experiment if you want, but still keep a team. You can't send up Arngrim anyway, so you might as well keep him, which is fine because he hits really hard. Now there are many ways you can use mages. I won't lie, mages are severely overpowered in this game, which is probably the reason why they added the cooldowns. I mean honestly, you can make a party of Lenneth and 3 mages for like support and attack, etc. I never tried this, but feel free to experiment. Or you can just have 1 mage in the back row for support. Again, it's up to you. Lenneth is the only character that can equip swords or bows. Don't send Lysaria to Asgard. There is a bug that was never fixed where if you send her, you can never get her back for the endgame. Towns only have 2 functions. World building to learn more about some basic lore, and some Einherjar have hidden gear that you can find if you take them to certain towns. Other than that, there is literally nothing else you can do in towns. In Chapter 3, there is a dungeon that won't appear in Spirit Concentration called Brahm's Castle. This is a gimmick dungeon that has a time limit of 4 minutes and very hard monsters. Explore this dungeon for looting purposes only, and nothing else until later on. Just avoid enemies and get everything you can. This dungeon has some great loot that you can equip or transmutate later on. Once the 4 minutes are up, it'll kick you out, so just make sure to grab everything in a run or two. And if you're shooting for the A ending, then do not meet Brahms, the boss of this dungeon. More on that later. If you're playing the game on PS4 or PS5, take advantage of the rewind feature in case you make a mistake. The PS4 and PS5 versions also let you save anywhere, so feel free to take advantage of this as well. Do not sell any broken equipment. I'm going to explain that in a few moments. Now this is a basic tip, but remember that you can press select on the left side of the touchpad to bring up the world map while flying around. It'll just make your life easier. Weight reaction is one of the best skills you can find for mages. It allows them to perform an unblockable attack with a familiar while they're waiting for cooldowns. Great way to start combos. First Aid and Cure Condition are great skills for the first few chapters. First Aid has a chance to heal your party members some of their HP at the beginning of each turn, while Cure Condition has a chance to remove poison and or other status effects at the beginning of a turn. For late game, the best skills are Auto Item and Guts. Auto Item uses items you can assign at the beginning of each turn. This includes health potions or elixirs as this game calls them, resurrection items, items that remove poison, etc. This will replace First Aid and Cure Condition. Guts has a chance to keep you alive if the character is KO'd. This is great because endgame bosses can literally one-shot your party. Hang on to Jolanda for a while. She starts with a heal spell, and you're not going to find that spell again for some time. There is an Odin artifact called the Coin of Fortune. While it doesn't say it in the description, this gear grants you 60% more experience points gained per battle. There's a bug in Lenneth that was never fixed. It's not game breaking, however, every time you equip Lenneth with a different weapon type, like let's say if you switch from a sword to a bow and vice versa, you have to re-equip her learned skills again, so just keep that in mind. Now for one last note, every time you start a new game, it's going to set you on a determined path, and this determines which Unheriar you're going to get in these chapters. For instance, one Unheriar during a playthrough may appear in chapter 2, but in another playthrough, that same Unheriar may appear in chapter 3. But you're always going to get the same Unheriar anyway, so I'm not too sure why the developers created these patterns. I'm pretty sure it's just that they wanted people to experience different playthroughs. But I don't know, it's basically the same shit anyway, so whatever, I just figured I'd point that out. Okay, now for some good shit. There is a way to get endgame gear in chapter 4. One quick warning, this will kinda break the game and lower the difficulty for upcoming chapters, so you've been warned. In chapter 4, there is a dungeon called the Tower of Lazard Valeth. Not gonna lie, this dungeon is a pain in the ass. Exploration can be confusing, some monsters are very difficult, but if I can do it, anyone can. But anyway, in this tower, there is an accessory that only Lenneth can equip called the Creation Gem. This is basically a transmutate upgrade. Once you locate it, you can transmutate new items that are stronger or better depending on your needs. For example, you can transmutate the Aqua Vitae into Icicle Guard, which is a strong piece of armor. The Bark of the Dryad becomes a Dimension Slip, which lets you run through enemies. Now you don't have to fight anyone, only bosses. But you can also do so much more. On hard mode in chapter 4, you can find an Odin artifact called the Manual of Resurrection in the Dark Tower of Serva. With the Creation Gem equipped, you can transmutate the Manual of Resurrection into Ori Halcon, and the Ori Halcon can be transmutated into the Creation Jewel, which transmutates even stronger items. To get the Ori Halcon on normal and easy mode, there's an Odin artifact in chapter 4 in a dungeon called the Black Dream Tower. In this dungeon, you'll find the Fairy Bottle. The Fairy Bottle transmutates into an Ori Halcon, and that becomes the Creation Jewel as well. Now remember all the broken gear you found in previous chapters? Now with the Creation Jewel, these can become endgame gear. Let's check out a few of them. The Broken Armor becomes Glare Sword. Holy Relic and the Book of Everlasting Life can each be turned into an Icicle Sword. Broken Blades become Glare Guards. Broken Spears become Crimson Edge. The Unicorn Horn becomes, for some odd reason, the Unicorn's Horn. I don't know. Which is a scepter that can cast PWS attacks for mages without ever breaking. And the Mithril Ore can now become the Ring of Learning, which increases experience points in battle by 30%. Combine this with the Coin of Fortune to gain even more experience points in battle. Also, quick tip, don't equip both the Creation Gem and the Creation Jewel at the same time. They won't work that way. Only equip one at a time and create what you need from there. There's obviously much more creative things you can do with the Creation Gem and Creation Jewel, but I'll let you explore those options yourself. Okay, now let's talk about the endings. Valkyrie Profile has 3 endings, A, B, and C. Ending C is the bad ending. If you want to see it, all you have to do is not send any Einherjar to Valhalla. Doing this will lower your eval points. Once you hit 24 or lower, Freya will show up and tell you to do better. But if your eval points get to 0, it's game over and you get the bad ending. It has some story bits to it, but not too much, so just watch it if you wish. If you want to do this fast, just go into the in-game menu and keep resting to use periods and skip through the chapters. Keep doing this without sending on Harriar and you'll get the C ending. To get to ending B, just play the game normally. Follow Freya's orders, send Einherjar to Asgard, and keep your eval points up. Once you finish the final dungeon, you get the normal B ending. Now, getting the A ending is super complicated. I swear that there is no other way to get this without a guide. But don't worry, I got your back on this one. First, to get the A ending, there are events you have to trigger in certain chapters. Second, remember the seal value on Lenneth's status screen? You need to bring this down to 37 or less by or during chapter 7. Let's discuss what strengthens the seal value first. Lenneth starts the game with an accessory called the Nibelungen Ring. When you start a new chapter with this equipped, her seal value increases by 2 points. And when you transfer Einherjar to Asgard, the seal increases by 12 points. You can honestly just take off the Nibelungen Ring at the start of the game, it's not very useful. So that begs the question, what weakens the seal? Starting a chapter without the ring equipped decreases the seal value by 2 points. Recruiting Einherjar also decreases it by 2 points. Recruiting Lucian lowers it by 20 points. Recruiting Mystina lowers it by 15 points. Seeing an event that I won't spoil in a town called Jerebellum lowers it by 15 points. Seeing another event in an area called Weeping Lily's Meadow also decreases the seal value by 15 points. Seeing Brahms in Brahms Castle lowers the value by 10 points, and defeating Lazard in the Tower of Lazard-Valeth lowers it by 15 points. Now instead of using math, I'll tell you exactly what you need to do in order. Here's what you gotta do. Play chapters 1 through 3 as you normally would without worrying about the ending. Just make sure to take off the Nibelungen Ring before chapter 4, and don't go to Jerebellum and the Weeping Lilies before chapter 4. Now when you start chapter 4, do not start the chapter doing spirit concentration. Transfer an Einherjar to Valhalla first. So either train the recruit in chapter 3 or use the experience orb to give them the necessary hero value and skills and traits needed for that chapter. Afterwards, transfer them to Valhalla. This will put your seal value at around 90 to 100 points. Basically what we're doing at the beginning of chapter 4 is that we're setting the foundation of bringing the points down. Now recruit all the Einherjar for this chapter, go to Jerebellum to see the event, then go to Weeping Lily's area to see the next event. Afterwards, go to Brahms Castle and meet him. If you went to the castle in chapter 3 to loot, don't worry, as long as you don't meet him until chapter 4. And I don't know if this affects the A ending or not, but when the game prompts you to fight Brahms, don't do it. Refuse to fight. He's difficult anyway, so you shouldn't fight him to begin with. Finally, go to the Tower of Lazard-Valeth and defeat him. You cannot leave the tower at any time. You have to finish it and defeat Lazard in one run. So either save before going in or take advantage of the save anywhere mechanic on the PS4 and PS5 versions. Enemies are tough, so save often. If you lose a battle, you'll be kicked out. Now, other than not doing spirit concentration in the beginning and transferring Einherjar first, the other events can be done in any order. Just be mindful of your time, because you use a lot of periods in this chapter. If you do all this, by the end of chapter 4, your seal value should be around 39 to 45. Alright, I think we're good lately. Now for chapter 5. Do spirit concentration as you normally would, and you'll find the recruitable Einherjar plus Lucian and Mystina. Recruit everyone, including Lucian and Mystina. After you recruit Lucian, you have to send him to Valhalla either during chapter 5 or 6, which I'm not gonna lie, it kinda sucks because he's a great fighter. But if you do fail to send him, you'll miss the A ending. Again, send him around chapter 5 or 6 the latest. Lastly, for chapter 5, be mindful of how many Einherjar you send to Valhalla, because remember, transfers increase the seal value by 12 points. Send only one to be safe, and be sure to keep that Nibelungen Ring off. Honestly, I would send Lucian around chapter 5 just to get it over with. If you do all this by the end of the chapter, your seal value should be in the lower to mid 30s. In Chapter 6, send Lucian if you haven't already. Recruit everyone again and keep the ring off. Send only 1 or 2 Einherjar maximum to Valhalla. To be safe, I would only send 1. By or during Chapter 7, if your seal value is at 37 or less, you will see another event. After you see that scene, you can play normally without worrying about the ending. You will know that you triggered the starting events of the A ending during Spirit Concentration in Chapter 8. The last Spirit Concentration should direct you to the Weeping Lilies Meadow, and you should be good. Congrats, you're on your way to the true ending. Well, I hope this guide helps you guys out. Valkyrie Profile to me is a masterpiece, and the franchise deserves a bit more attention in my opinion, so please give it a shot. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask me in the comments. The next Valkyrie Profile video I'm going to make is a deep dive into the story, so look forward to that one. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and feel free to share it. Follow me on other social media platforms to keep up to date with my work. Thanks again, and take care.